Hello and welcome to With Thunder's Applause, a podcast where two friends get together to talk about the events and ideas that will shape our uncertain future. I am your host, Steve, along with my co host, Zach. What's up?
This is Zach. We'll pretend to be an ASMR person today.
Perfect. Speaking of weird beginnings, you tend to coordinate your background in a way that fits into the broader theme. Like you had knockoff superheroes behind you when we talked about intellectual property, etc. So I'm just curious what you have up your proverbial sleeve with the raccoons.
This way. There we go. So I searched on Wikimedia Commons for the Red Scare.
The Red Scare.
And this is what I got. It's a raccoon with laser eyes.
Well, your fucking algorithm is fucked up then, because if I put it in Red Scare, I'll get lots of...
No, it's Wikimedia Commons. It's like the GIFs and pictures from the same people that make Wikipedia. It's just so you can hopefully find something and not have to pay for it in order to get thumbnails and stuff.
I mean, yeah, Google image search brings up
a lot of things are copyrighted. Well, yeah, you have to tell it.
There's a filter.
Yeah. This is what I got, and I'm happy with it. So I was like, yeah, fucking laser eyes raccoons, Cyclops, dude.
Very cool. I wanted to lead off and talk about episode 7, season 3, The Mandalorian, but Zach hasn't seen it, even though it's already been out for almost 48 hours.
It is my understanding this is a strange thing for someone who purports to like Star Wars.
Bro, my partner's working early in the morning. Like she leaves here at 7:30, I think. So anyway, it comes out at midnight. So we're not watching it at midnight Wednesday. And I'm getting bombarded with thumbnails and shit, just scrolling my normal feed.
Yeah.
Because people assume that by
2
5 p.m. the following evening when it was released at midnight. Right.
I see a lot of it, but most of the things I see have truncated titles, and so I just stop reading them as soon as I see Star Wars or The Mandalorian.
Yeah, some of them.
Yeah, but
no, I haven't seen it. Not being considerate.
Oh, that's pretty fucked up. I haven't seen it yet. I do a pretty good job of avoiding things, I didn't know Lizzo was in the other one. Spoilers if you haven't seen it yet. You've had a whole week. Fuck you.
Seriously, fuck you. I think 48 hours apparently is too long.
I didn't watch it. We got Wednesday. Oh, we were helping my mother-in-law clean up her house. I got a pressure wash. It's fucking fun.
Nice.
Yeah, she had when it was raining, we almost slipped several times because she has a whole bunch of algae and moss growing. And so I went ahead and removed the algae and the moss. And so now we will hopefully not slip anymore.
Very good. Safety first is my motto.
It is. It's a good motto.
Yep.
But yeah, so I got home and I was fucking super tired. And then today, I don't know what I did today. I honestly couldn't tell.
How about that as a tagline for the show?
What the fuck did I do today?
I mean, that is probably more appropriate than what I was going to say, but I was going to say safety first, shenanigans thereafter.
Rachel has a saying, it's supposed to be for the kid, but it's fuck it, never mind. It's basically get your shit done first and then fun later. Because she has a tendency to be like, I'm just gonna have fun until the last minute, and then that thing that I needed to do, I suddenly can't do it. And it's like, why do we give you things? But anyway,
because they're obligated under law in some cases and custom in others. That's
right?
what you do.
You gotta feed kids. What the hell is up with that? Oh, hate it. So we're gonna get drunk and talk about the news today. Is that not correct?
Yeah, we haven't done a news thing in so long, dude, and there's so much going on. We can't possibly cover even remotely close to everything. Like, we are gonna have a clip about what's going on in France. But I think it's specifically about something that happened recently. They've been fucking protesting hardcore for a long time.
My clip has little to do with protesting. Actually, it's
No,
got
yeah, that's
everything.
what I was
Yeah,
gonna say. But it's discussing this circumstances in France, though.
yeah.
There's definitely a tie-in. But there were
Well,
some judicial reforms proposed in Israel a few weeks back. Like, we haven't done news in a long time. And that like caused all sorts of widespread protests. And then of course, Israel Israeli political elite do what they always do, which is when the public is generally dissatisfied with them, they punish the Palestinians by murdering them to kind of like in some ways it's like kind of like a bloodletting or whatever, right? Like,
Oh, it's like a scapegoat.
yeah, I mean they can just kind of like distract the populace by being like, oh, we need to go like kill people who have no clean water and no housing.
Yeah,
Whatever.
seems legit.
Seems legit in their opinion. So anyway, that's been happening. Obviously, we continue to edge closer and not in a good way to nuclear conflict. Um, North Korea, apparently there was some military drills that South Korea and the US were doing, and then
Yeah.
North Korea wasn't picking up the fucking emergency phone, like the direct line.
Mm.
For like days. The last I heard, it was like 6 fucking days. They just didn't answer it the whole time the thing was going. And then like a bunch of people in a Japanese city got evacuated a couple days ago.
Oh my.
Or like a warning to evacuate because North Korea was testing a rocket and like
Yeah.
shooting it towards the city.
Yeah, man, I've missed everything. Jesus.
Yeah, man, and that's all they're just provocations. I like what Canadian Prepper says, and if we have time, we're going to do a little Canadian Prepper short because they're fun and they're easy, and I think they lead to very interesting conversations because it's kind of more wide open than some of the more kind of like information dense things we might talk about.
Yeah, and a lot of times there's already a preconceived conclusion to some of the things we watch.
Right, precisely. Like because we share politics enough to where like we on a lot of this shit we have a similar opinion.
Very
Um,
true, yeah.
and Canadian Prepper is just kind of like throwing these hypothetical scenarios that are like in a sandbox. So anyway, we might touch on his stuff, and that'll be fun.
I just realized I don't have an outro phrase, but I do know. Never mind, doesn't matter. Anyway, carry on.
No. So we're going to start with this document leak. That's another news story that happened 4 or 5 days ago. And there's been a lot of coverage of it because, of course, like the president's press secretary, I think actually we have a clip that'll cover it. So I won't say it now, but
Okay.
basically like the government's like, no, don't pay attention to this. And it was just like all over the place. But like, of course, it's like confirmations that the US is fucking spying on its allies and finding ways to manipulate situations.
Uh,
Um,
so it's probably very prevalent in international news, but most Americans could care less about it. I don't know about it.
yeah. Yeah. And there's, more concrete data on the situation in Ukraine. Like it was
Mm,
correspondence between like military intelligence or whatever, as I understand it. And so there was a kind of more realistic picture, which kind of showed this disparity between like what the media is reporting and what the government actually thinks is happening on the ground or knows that's happening based on its on the ground sources.
mhm.
Um, and so of course, that's another like, oh shit, like of course you actually know what's happening and the media is actually fucking obscuring that shit.
Yeah.
But there was a whole bunch of different things, and some of it was pretty random. And I think they, as the clip will show, actually, I'm sorry. Can you load up the
ABC one.
clips first? I'm sorry,
Yeah, not a
because
problem.
that'll go into some of the what the documents contained, and then the next clip we'll talk about the guy because he got arrested today.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's the more interesting conversation. But I
Gotcha.
think that this is the necessary context.
Yeah, we need the background.
I love that fucking sound, bro.
I saw
want to drink beer. I'm tired
I
of
saw-
drinking cheap bourbon.
I saw a hilarious
Let them drink beer.
beer in circuses. I saw a hilarious bumper sticker. It said, "Hey, I'll tell your cat." I said, "Psst, psst." Let's get this going, brah.
The Justice Department now launching a criminal investigation of an apparent major Pentagon intelligence leak. Dozens of classified U.S. intelligence documents, most marked top secret, were leaked and posted online back in late February and early March. Most of those documents we simply cannot show. ABC has not yet authenticated the leaked documents, and we don't have official confirmation whether the documents have been altered. But sources say they exposed the United States for spying not just on its adversaries, but also its allies, like Israel, South Korea,
Water is
and
wet.
even
What's the
Ukraine.
news here?
Experts say the leaked documents not only tell our enemies how the U.S. collects intelligence, but also contain clues that could potentially point to the sources and methods the U.S. used to obtain the information.
Okay, that's
Apparently, there's some code
That's
words
bad.
here that point to where the analysis came from. This means that it makes it much easier for the Russians to go back and do the counterintelligence work.
The leaked documents forcing allies to respond. South Korea's president downplaying the situation, saying the documents need to be verified first, but that the country will take appropriate measures with the U.S. if necessary. And in Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pushing back after documents suggested leaders of Israel's spy agency, the Mossad, had encouraged angry protests against his proposed judicial reforms.
If our allies do not trust us to safeguard their secrets or intelligence that they provide us, they may be more hesitant to provide us intelligence in the future.
As for Ukraine, the leaked documents paint a detailed image of the Ukrainian
Seems obvious.
battlefield on March 1st, showing troop
That's a fucking
movements,
empty
training
head in the
schedules,
soup, bro.
and casualty numbers. Over the weekend, U.S. officials were scrambling to reassure its allies and partners. As for Ukraine, they're blaming Russia for the leak, while Russia is pointing to the United States as the source. Ike Ajachi, ABC News, Washington.
Of course.
My brother told me that he was cheating on his wife, and I told his wife, and now he doesn't want to tell me secrets anymore. Weird.
I
Didn't
thought
actually-
you were referring to Stormy Daniels
Oh,
because that's another news item we didn't even get to.
no, that's true. Trump indictment. I don't want to cover the fucking Trump indictment. I don't give
I
a
don't
shit.
either, but I think
You know what I want to cover is when he gets arrested and thrown in prison. That's what I want to cover.
Well, I mean, okay, fair enough. We don't have time
If.
for it now because we have a plan.
Yeah.
But I do think it's worth talking about because, in my humble opinion, and very succinct explanation, I think that like it's political theater
Mhm.
that will result in nothing, just
Mhm.
like previous attempts, right, to impeach, articles of impeachment.
Mhm.
And all it does is further agitate the base
Mhm.
and makes it more likely that far-right extremists seize power in this country. And Trump is not included in far-right extremists, in my opinion. There are much worse characters.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, like, at any rate, I said I'd be succinct, so that's enough. But I think it's going to blow up because that shit happens all the time. They're like, "Ooh, I want to own you." Like, "Oh, I owned you," and all it does is fucking blow up because really, the vast majority of Americans of all political stripes are really just fed up with the fucking system we have that funnels all of the national wealth into the handful of a fucking few people,
Right.
and they're just fucking playing games around the surface and doing what's best for the party or doing what's best for the elite and the friends they go to cocktail parties with. And like the rest of us are like getting ready for a French Revolution style shit. Like guillotines are not going to be a meme. They're going to be like, oh shit. More
They're
people are
really
going to the
easy to make.
guillotine. Maybe this got out of hand. Can we cut back on the guillotines? Right? Like
Guillotines are surprisingly easy to make, and you can find blueprints online.
you can absolutely.
And the blade
And also just
doesn't
use
need to be all that
common sense.
sharp.
No, just use common sense. It's got to be
Yeah.
tall enough for gravity to accelerate it to a speed to provide a certain force.
It's just got to be heavy. And remember,
And be
chopping
heavy.
the head cleanly off is a service that you're giving to the person that you're beheading.
Yeah, you don't want to Theon Greyjoy that shit. Remember when he fucking took Winterfell and he went to execute that dude and had to fucking hit him like 5 times?
Yeah.
God, that show was fucked up.
Yeah, it was a good show though.
Yeah.
Except for the ending.
Except for the last season. I've made the joke a number of times, and I stole that from you, to people I talk to about politics or whatever. It's just like, oh yeah, my buddy Zach says fucking the only thing that all Americans have ever agreed on ever before in our entire history is that fucking season 8 of Game of Thrones sucked.
Delightful.
Delightful. All right. Now let's step into some Kim Iverson. She's going to talk a little bit about the identity of the person arrested and some of his background. And then we can kind of chat about plausibility. Is it this guy? Go ahead.
Hello and welcome to the Kim Iverson Show. The alleged leaker of the Pentagon documents has been arrested and will be charged under the Espionage Act. Who is he?
Yep.
Well, his name is Jack Teixeira. He's a 21-year-old Air National Guardsman in the 102nd Intelligence Wing of the Massachusetts Air National Guard. His official job is Cyber Transport Systems Journeyman. And according to the Air Force, cyber transport systems specialists are tasked with making sure the vast global communications network is operating properly. So how did he get the documents? Well, we still don't know. The documents were top secret classified, but according to the Air Force, someone in his job position could have been given top secret access. His job was to maintain these cyber transport systems, which is the transfer of documents from one place, I guess, cyberly to another. So maybe he intercepted them, maybe he was given access to them, maybe the documents were handled about as carefully as the classified docs found in Joe Biden's garage. So how was he found? Well, supposedly it was the New York Times that actually figured out who he was, and I assume they gave him up to the authorities. They claimed that they followed a digital trail that he left behind, and then they were able to name him before the FBI. So how were they able to do it? Well, Jack is the leader of a small online gaming chat group called Thug Shaker Central that had about 20 to 30 users, mostly teens, mostly American, but some reportedly are foreigners. Now, Jack Teixeira was the leader of the group, the associates from the group said when they were asked. He apparently wanted all of his followers in the group to care more about foreign policy, or he wanted to gain clout. So that's why he started posting the documents. Now, apparently, the New York Times figured out it was Jack by looking at the photos of the Pentagon documents and then looking through the other.
I think that there's a subtext to how the open source intelligence stuff works with the newspaper.
Okay.
That we can get to after that. But just the beginning of it. Young dude. Obviously has access to those documents, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty plausible. One of the things that they didn't note in the ABC clip, but I heard other people mention in other people covering the issue. And one of the things that they all remarked was like, but the thing about this document leak, it wasn't like Edward Snowden's where he pulled like a bunch of files on very specific issues. So it was abundantly clear, what exactly he had ethical issues with and thought the public should know about, right? With the spying. And people were mentioning that this group of Pentagon leaks were like all over the place. They're like, it's hard to tell like what the motive or what the grievance was that motivated these leaks because like it's just kind of a hodgepodge, right?
Right.
And what she's presented so far, and obviously I was making a drink, so I didn't catch everything, but she did kind of explain that it's just kind of kid into video games, into shooting guns, right?
Yeah, frustrated with the fact that people that are playing video games are only concerned about the video games, and he's like, "Yo, wise up."
Yeah,
basically, it sounded like it. Yeah.
Foreign policy, but also like specifically like some of the other political beliefs. Like he mentioned Ruby Ridge. Oh no, have we got to the blacked out kid? No?
No,
Okay.
not yet.
Never
Uh,
mind.
this document, though, I will say, good sir, learn how to use your fucking camera's cropping feature. Like, I am a 42-year-old dude, and I could do a better job than this. Like, you crop out everything outside the edges because you don't want your feet to show because people are into feet.
That's true.
Right?
That's
It's
true. Anyway, carry on.
kind of crazy.
Other photos that he posted on his site, on the Discord site, and then matched up the backgrounds. He apparently posted pics of him at home, and the countertops matched, as you can see there. And so these photos and the fact that he's one of the older users in the group with a
Those
military
don't look the
job
same to me, but
and a
whatever.
military job that could possibly have access to these materials, it led them
Yeah.
to Jack Teixeira. Some people apparently in the Discord group knew exactly what his name was and where he was located because there was enough trust in this small group that they shared these types of personal details. So it wasn't being very careful there. Now, apparently, there was then enough evidence for the FBI to arrest him after the New York Times investigation. Now, the Washington Post did an interview with one of the young members in the group, and this is what he had to say about Jack.
Would not call OG a whistleblower in the slightest. I don't think that there was a goal nor some sort of accomplishment that he was looking for in sharing these documents. Of course, there's some anti-government sentiment, but that's not unlike most right-wingers in the modern day and age. OG was not hostile to the U.S. government. However, he had disagreed with several occasions, such as Waco and Ruby Ridge, and thought that the government is overreaching in several aspects. There was no heavy Snowden-like conspiracy here, like some people may believe. People were reading them, and they were not commenting on them. They were just sitting there. Yeah. I want to keep OG's identity secret because I still care for him like he's a family member. He is not a Russian operative. He is not a Ukrainian operative. I'll go as far to say he's not even on the east side of the world. Any claims that he is a Russian operative or pro-Russian is categorically false. He is not interested in helping any foreign agencies with their attack on the U.S. or other countries. He was a young, charismatic man who loved nature, God, who loved shooting guns and racing cars. He did have sort of a bossy attitude at some points, but it was more of a fatherly bossy. He did see himself as the leader of this group, and ultimately he was the leader of this group. And he wanted us all to be sort of super soldiers to some degree, informed, fit, with God, well-armed, stuff like that. It would appear as if he sort of grew angry with the fact that only one or two people were paying attention to these documents that he was pouring his heart out into. And as a sign of just anger, he just decided to post the full documents. He was a very smart man. There's no way in any world that he would not know that he knew that these were illegal.
There you go. Pause.
Ooh.
So there's a lot to that, right? Because they kind of painted a picture, and she'll go on, and we don't need to cover it here, but she goes on to be like, "Oh, they're scaremongering against right wingers so that they can like criminalize people's political beliefs."
Yeah.
And I could definitely see parts of the media exploiting that. But he painted a picture of someone that's like, if you spend time in online spaces, especially if you spend time online in like prepper spaces or pro Second Amendment spaces, like they just described like fucking probably 80% of the people under 25 or 30.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What do you got going on in your lap that's so fucking important, man?
Sorry, wife talking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just noticed. I was like, I hope he's wearing pants because he's like, "You okay down there, buddy?" The fuck, bro? But I mean, how would we know, right? We only see it from the waist up.
Just reach up and tilt.
No. Please don't do that.
Colonel Wiggles is just fine.
Colonel Wiggles, that's fucking hilarious. I'm not sure why I hadn't heard that before. At any rate, like, what are your thoughts so far on that whole kind of deal there?
I mean, just sounds like a guy who was pissed off at his peers for not being interested in political things and the fact that the world is a bigger theater than gaming, but at the same time, like, is pushing that information out in a gaming forum really the best place to try to get people involved? Like, most of the time when people want a game, they want to relax and get away from that sort of shit. Like,
well, I think that idea of making them super soldiers, right? Like,
oh, that
and
one comment. I mean, I
well, I mean,
guess.
in terms of like paying attention to like those structures and how they move information and what that information means.
I mean, if he's gaming with a whole bunch of other like military personnel and he's like, why aren't you interested in this? I could see that. But I
Yeah,
mean, if
it
it's
doesn't sound
just,
like he is though.
yeah, if he's just gaming with regular people, like, what do you expect? But like, I've been in large guilds before in World of Warcraft and similar games, and there are usually rules that you don't talk about politics because that's not what we're here for.
Right, but it seems like that what that community was built around. 20 or 30 people is a pretty highly curated Discord channel in my experience.
Yeah.
Especially built around a game, right? But anyway, yeah, I mean, most Discord channels for games that I've been on are pretty large. Even ones dedicated to politics have more than 20 or 30 people.
Yeah.
Right? I
Yeah.
mean, even nonprofits
The super
usually have
soldiers,
more than that. Yeah. Sorry, go
the
ahead.
super soldier thing, makes me think like, you're 21, you're a child. I get it. Like,
Oh, yeah.
and
that's what
like take
sucks.
it seriously and all, but like maybe don't, put your career and your life on the line, just to kind of like prove a point.
Yeah. A lot of things line up for this dude just literally being young and dumb.
Yeah.
And just being mad about the situation, which is like fucking completely reasonable state of being or condition or feeling or idea about the world, is that it's fucked up, because that's like the whole fucking reason we do a podcast.
Yeah. I mean, I
Talk
was
about how
21.
fucked up everything is.
I was 21 when 9/11 happened, and I was just surprised at how quickly everyone kind of took to the whole like, let's kill people what wear towels on their heads, and I'm like, okay, I don't know these people, I don't care about these people, and it was like 4 or 5 of them that blew up this building. I don't know anyone who lives in New York. I don't care. Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to go to war for like a few hundred people dying. Like, write me back when it's a few thousand. Maybe I'll care. But yeah.
I
this
mean, it
sort of-
was a few thousand. I think 9/11 was like 3,200 or some shit like that.
Yeah, at the final count.
Yeah.
When we were first getting out of hand, it was like a few hundred. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of weird to me that you do it in that sort of community to begin with. It is kind of easily understandable that people are like, oh, he just wanted clout, and you're like, yeah, he has access to to some documents, and he's like, look what I have access to.
So look at how
And
cool my booking job is.
And whether or not it's him, assuming the fact that, well, knowing the fact that someone like took that picture and didn't properly crop it, fuck you, you're an idiot. Like, the tools are on every phone. Apple can do it, Android can do it. You just need to basically say, like, if it's not perfectly squared, there we go, squared up, it's more like this. You can point to the edges and it'll square it up for you. It'll cut out everything in the background. And then you're not going to pound me in the ass. Prison at the ripe old age of 21.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. And I just hate the way that, I mean, just that clip, they hadn't caught the guy yet. But that ABC clip, right? And they just like weave right in there. It's like, oh yeah, this benefits Russia and like all this shit. And then you get here and a kid that apparently like, a young man that interacted with him in online spaces was just like, no, he's definitely not working for a foreign government.
Mm-hmm.
He's literally as dumb as you are. You're like,
he said he was smart though, which says to me that guy is dumb.
Perhaps. I don't know. I'm not going to judge. He seemed articulate. But like you said, not cropping, right? Just being really sloppy and other things. You don't have to be fucking like, that's why the Espionage Act is so fucking stupid. Because it's only used to hurt people. Because like most of the time it's like employed. My understanding, I don't know every exact instance, but my understanding is that majority of the time, it doesn't compromise anybody. It literally, it might like, like when there were leaks that showed that the US was spying on Germany, which is why this isn't fucking new. And you had commented while the video was playing, you're like, and water is wet, right? Like, of course the US is fucking spying. No one, South Korea didn't give a fuck. Ukraine's just like, oh, it's Russia.
Exactly. We're spying on South Korea. South Korea's spying on us. They're like, we'll have to make sure it's true because, and really what I hear, when they say that is like, we'll have to make sure it's true, but we're not going to try very hard because like we're doing the same thing. That's just the world for you. There's intelligence, there's counterintelligence, and we all do it.
Yeah. And one thing I thought that was weird, and on the Israel question, that's another kind of all in one. Did I hear that they said the part of the leaks was like proof or suggestions that the Israeli intelligence agencies were like agents provocateurs getting people to protest against the judicial reforms? Is that what I heard?
I didn't hear that. We can.
I thought I had heard that, and that to me is like absolutely ludicrous because what I understood about those judicial reforms that pissed everybody off were basically a fucking power grab and would allow the party in power to like kind of set the judicial agenda like entirely.
Yeah.
If I understand it correctly. I don't understand their political system super well, but that's kind of how I read the coverage I saw on it. Was like it would basically make it harder to have a democracy because it would entrench more party power into control over who are judges.
Yeah.
And that's why people were protesting because they were like, what the fuck? Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say what concerns me is they didn't talk about it, but the title of the video is "Watch Out for Increased Security State Crackdown on Internet After Discord Pentagon Leaker."
Yeah.
And like, we already have a bunch of that cracking down here. We've already got like, hey, we gotta get rid of TikTok because government employees are putting it on their government issued phones for some fucking god awful reason. But like the law,
the Restrict Act doesn't even mention TikTok by name.
No, it doesn't, and that's actually worse because it is very generalized. And it's basically saying, like, hey, we're going to hand over all kinds of powers to the U.S. government to restrict things like just using a VPN. And so, now I'm kind of feeling like this isn't a great thing. And I mean, I never agreed with banning TikTok. Like, if people want to give information to whoever it is, like, go ahead. And if your problem is that government employees are putting an app that's compromising their phone on their work phone, I can almost guarantee you that there's a thing that says do not use work phones for like private shit. You fire the people. You fire them. And if that doesn't stop them, you put a clause in the contract that says end prison.
I have a better suggestion.
Oh.
The whole concept of gig work, like, and all that, where like you own all of the means of production, but someone else makes money off of your labor.
Mm-hmm.
It's been happening with the cell phones too. Like, I literally was like, it's my fucking day off. And it's like, it doesn't matter. You still need to answer your phone. It's like, if you needed to get a hold of me on my day off because it's an emergency, then you provide me a phone and make it an obligation, but provide those means. Why am I paying the phone bill so you can call me in on my day off?
Oh, so you think in this instance it is someone with a government job who isn't given a work phone and is using their private phone for work and discussing work things with TikTok installed. And the idea is like, oh, TikTok can look at your phone because you give it access. Okay.
Because I do know, or at least I've heard, and as I understand it, people in the White House and like on the National Security Council and shit are issued phones that go through IT.
Mm-hmm.
And they're encrypted or however they do it if they're being used to transmit information. That was the whole thing with the Hillary Clinton emails. That was why it was such a big fucking deal.
Right.
Because they gave her a system and she set up her own system, parallel system.
Right.
So that she could do what she wanted. And then so you have then classified documents on unsecure machines, right? And so the whole thing is like, if you want me to use my phone for work, then provide me a phone that's issued through IT, put some kind of periodic software update and look around where you have to turn the phone in on a rotating schedule, and then they can make sure the security functions are still working, and then also kind of check if you're using it for bullshit, like putting TikTok on it. But if you're like, oh, we're going to ban TikTok because we don't want our regular employees who we expect to use their own devices to fulfill their job functions, right?
So
that's my point.
I do have one comment there, and that is
bullshit. I'm right. You know it.
No,
I'm just joking, dude.
You're not wrong in your assumptions, but I will say that you're wrong in the end result. Because I have worked for several banks and they have all said, don't do this, don't do that. And they have made restrictions to
on the network
to prevent you from doing those things. Nothing is impregnable. And I am very good at impregnating things. Wait, no, wrong. Anyway.
Actually, you're not.
I'm terrible at impregnating things. But like one of the jobs I worked at, they eventually got, what I found is I could start downloading something on my private phone network, then connect to the Wi-Fi that my work computer would provide, because my work computer was a hotspot if I wanted it to be. And so then I could I could connect over to the hotspot, and as long as I didn't start the download, it didn't know what was downloading. It just knew there was a download, and so it would download. So I downloaded gigabytes of illegal movies through
on your bank's Wi-Fi. Well, okay.
And then on top of that, they then later tried to. I was looking up a bunch of shit about D&D. Just because I'm really good at my job. Any job you give me, I'm fucking good at, and I'll get to the point where I'm way ahead of the curve and I'm bored. And so I got to the point where I would finish my job like shortly after lunch and have like 4 or 5 hours just dick around. So I'd start looking up D&D shit. Well, eventually some of the websites I looked at got blocked because, they were like, oh man, like look at all this traffic that's going through here. Let's just block that website. Well, there is a website called the Wayback Machine that allows you to look at websites that have been taken down or, that have changed, and you can see the older version. Well, you can also take a website that isn't archived and archive it and then look at it through the Wayback Machine, and the Wayback Machine wasn't blocked. And so I would just archive the website I wanted to see and then look at it through the Wayback Machine. I've had...
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
But you're not handling classified government documents.
No, very true. I am.
And I don't think anywhere in the Restrict Act does it say to ensure that workers aren't stealing or taking their labor back from their unpaid, uncompensated labor back from their bosses and playing online and looking at D&D.
Mm-hmm.
These are government devices. And so like, I hear what you're saying, but my point is like, put a firewall, do some kind of restriction.
What I'm saying is you can't stop it.
I don't know, dude. Like
you can try.
I've been on a government, like a military machine.
Yeah,
like quite a while actually. But
very true.
Generally speaking, they were pretty hardcore about what kind of like there was all sorts of websites we couldn't access.
Do you think banks are just kind of lazy? in
You also
comparison.
work for a small bank.
No, I worked for a bigger bank too. And in that instance, they were they were going to roll out a customer facing iPad for like signing up for new accounts. And like I went through several steps, where they were like, "Oh yeah, we're just storing it there." Or I was like, "Why is this here?" And they're like, "Oh, we're storing it until we put it out to the branch." And I was like, "Can I fuck around with it?" And they're like, "Yeah, go ahead." And I was like, "Cool. Hey Siri, do this." And it popped up a website, and I was like, fix that shit." And so they disabled that. And then like just iterations, where I was like, let me go to the settings and turn on the Apple VPN and go to the website I want. So like a lot of places don't think about these things. And you just end up getting away with a whole lot of shit. It's fun.
That's true. What's up next? You want to talk about France?
We could do Canadian Prepper. I need to get a drink, so that would be a good opportunity for me.
Oh, then let's definitely play the Macron, because the Canadian Prepper is like,
it's not a video,
10
unfortunately. I can give you the I can give you the link if you'd like to pull it up on your own.
Sure.
There it is in the chat, and you'll just need to bring up your feed.
Yeah, I got you. Oh, good. Where am I? Oh, it's Press TV. Okay, good. Run. Fly, little birdie. Fly.
I don't see it on your feed.
I know. I'm bringing it up right now.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right. Flying. Woo!
All right. I guess I'm in charge now. Get stuck with me.
How do you do the thing where you disappear from the camera?
You turn the fucking camera off, bro. It's not rocket science.
Well, okay.
Click the camera link at the bottom.
Man, there's a camera link?
Yeah, it's just a little fucking box with a
disable the camera. And mute the
You can also turn the mic off too. That's what I usually do.
Future man.
All right, everybody. Let's see. This is the screen I want to share. Microsoft Edge tab, Macron, share. Bing. Cool. Wait. Damn it. Hello. Excellent. Okay, cool. Y'all should still hear me. I think I see my little clicker. This is the first time I've done the back end on myself. Okay, great. Let's read this article. Macron rejects U.S. policy on Taiwan, says France is not a U.S. vassal. Interestingly enough, I think a German politician also used similar language. And this was a number of weeks ago. And so I do think that's interesting. There's a lot to this, but I'll wait till Zach gets back and I'll just read some of this. And anybody that's watching this should be aware of the fact that Macron's government used some kind of legislative tomfoolery or executive power tomfoolery to pass this pension reform to raise the retirement age in France to 64 from 62, as I understand it. And so people were protesting and shit. But this is more related to says Taiwan.
Yeah, it's about
go ahead.
Recently there's been a lot of back and forth with US, Taiwan, and China. US is claiming Taiwan preparing for war, etc., etc. China's just like, oh man, we're doing exercises just like you do exercises. Calm your tits a bit.
Calm them. Hakuna those tatas. All right. So Macron said France still backed the status quo on Taiwan, which should be the one China policy.
Yep.
And stressed that his country will not follow American hardliners into conflict with China. That's interesting, but also completely reasonable.
Yeah.
But France and other countries definitely followed them right into conflict in Ukraine, which is equally as dangerous.
Well, and in Iraq.
Oh yeah, Iraq, Libya.
Yeah, just
Um,
everywhere else.
yeah, I don't know if French foreign nationals were in Afghanistan, but there were a lot of other NATO partners. Italians, Germans, Georgians, and Georgia's not even a fucking member, an official member of NATO. Why? Because when the US tried to get Georgia to join fucking NATO, Russia fucking invaded Georgia.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is just this literally already, this shit in Ukraine literally already fucking happened back in like 2000 and I want to say 2006, 8, 10, 2010. At any rate, France is for the status quo and a peaceful resolution to the situation. Macron visited China last week. After the visit, he said there are great risk Europe faces if it gets caught up in the crises that are not ours, which prevents it from building its strategic autonomy, urging European leaders to focus on staying out of a potential conflict between Washington and Beijing over Taiwan. If the tensions between the two superpowers heat up, we won't have time nor the resources to finance our strategic autonomy, and we will become vassals, he warned, urging his fellow European leaders to become self-reliant. Apparently, he also said Europe must cut reliance on the US dollar and seek strategic autonomy. So, at any rate, that's all we really need from that,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah. Well, what gets me is America's
Can I
all
shut it?
about, yeah. America's all about, fucking provocation and everything like that. But America's also never had a international war on its soil outside
100%.
of, yeah, like outside of the actual, British, British war, and a few
1812,
skirmishes with
yeah.
Mexico, Yeah, exactly. And so we've never experienced losing just hundreds of thousands of people, and anything
Well,
like
the
that.
American Civil War was pretty fucking awful, but you're right. It was
We brought it on ourselves too.
primarily an internal conflict.
Yeah. We haven't had a whole lot of external conflicts where massive losses happened. And France suffered greatly during both World War I and World War II. So it's very easy to understand why France might be like, yeah, let's just respect the way things are. It's not really our business. It's halfway across the fucking world. Like, why are we trying to get involved in this? No, America, we're not going to make ourselves beholden to your decisions, which I completely agree with, because I don't think that America's going the greatest way. We tend to want conflict because we control a lot of the arms financing.
Because we're an empire.
And we got all
That's what
kinds of
empires
fucking
do.
Yup, and worse, we're a fucking capitalist empire with all kinds of massive businesses that need death in order to function.
Yeah.
We can't.
And I just find this fucking fascinating because like one of the themes of the show is that we're kind of at this historical moment, right, where the American empire, industrial civilization based on fucking cheap and abundant and cheap fossil fuels, all of these things are kind of coming to a head at once. So it's like a period of great change in all aspects of our existence, right?
Yeah.
Including the global order, right? And so you have Russia and China talking, and you have China who's had this Belt and Road Initiative economic policy to kind of like, hey, we can all, like, a rising tide lifts all boats kind of thing, right?
And that seems to be the Chinese way of thinking too.
Yeah. They literally just have a different mindset rooted in their own cultural memory and experience as a people. That's it.
Right.
And so anyway, like you see Russia and China working together, you see China going to speak to the Saudis and the Iranians.
Yep.
And
peace in the
I
Middle
think
East, bro.
A week or two after that meeting, or maybe it was less than 2 weeks, Iran and Saudi Arabia, once they started talking to each other and had kind of a framework for diplomacy, now with China as the economic benefactor there, right? Hey, I understand the U.S. is pressuring you into fighting each other and, putting, Iran and Russia and other countries in this kind under the sanctions and all this economic pressure. It's like, join us. We are the economic union, right? And then they have BRICS. Saudi Arabia's petition to enter BRICS, and you have all this stuff, right? So you basically have like a new world order, but not in the like tinfoil hat kind of way, but quite literally a new world order.
Yeah.
With the U.S. not being at the center because we fucking fucked it up.
And of course we're pissed
for the people we've been sanctioning,
right,
to be like, okay, fuck you then, and make something new. But it's very, very, very interesting to see a traditional American allies being like, yeah, the U.S. is done. Like the U.S. empire is over, and it's time for us to do our own thing. Go ahead.
No, I completely agree. 100%. People don't know that is where we're going. Is fucking. We have pissed so many people off trying to have an empire, get our corporations all the best deals, banana republics, etc., etc. We've just thrown away so much goodwill trying to basically acquire the highest number of billionaires per capita.
Yeah.
And the cows are coming home to roost. Wait, that's not right. Anywho.
That's the cows are roosting on the split rail fence. They're just sitting there, lean back, smoking a fucking backwood, drinking on a fucking Stein of craft beer.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I can agree with that. Go cows, go. Yeah. But anyway,
I don't know. I was thinking of a cigarillo. Maybe I should have said Swisher Sweet.
Ooh, yeah. I think that's more identifiable for your average stoner.
Or a Black and Mild. Even better.
Yeah.
Smoking a Black and Mild, drinking a Stein of craft beer. The cow sitting on the fence.
Smoking an eighth of Sticky Gooey.
Sticky Gooey, yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, basically, like, America's just been pissing a lot of people off for a very long time, and I shouldn't say America. I should say the United States of Canadian America. Because our Canadian friends are following us way too fucking closely. You can't even run away to Canada anymore.
But it makes sense they follow close, right? Because I mean, the vast majority of Canadians live pretty close to the United States, and basically, like,
we have a shared history of abusing, Native Americans as well.
Yeah, and I was a undergraduate student in history.
Mm-hmm.
That's what my BA is in.
I'm familiar with that. Yes.
Yeah, I was just saying it because we're recording a podcast, so I know you're aware. I hope so. Anyway, one of the takeaways from like U.S. history, California history, right? That period of like early modern U.S. history was why did President Polk, even though we had obviously a decisive victory in the Mexican-American War, like fucking hardcore, but why didn't we go into Mexico City and just fucking take Mexico?
I'm gonna guess it wasn't worth it in terms of productivity. Too hard to hold, perhaps.
As I was taught, the president at the time, when him and his cabinet members were considering it, the president declared, "Oh, we don't want that. There's too many Mexicans."
They'd be Americans, though, at that point.
Yeah, no, but he was just being fucking.
I get him. Like, being horribly racist.
Because Mexico is like a kind of distinct indigenous. It's mostly indigenous with like Spanish elements.
Right. Right.
I don't want to say mostly indigenous, but they create kind of Mexican identity, as I understand it, came out of a kind of like smushing together of indigenous Mexicans with Spanish cultural customs and shit.
Right.
So, and also lots and lots of fucking, so that the gene pools just kind of blend until you have like a kind of white passing, but also indigenous passing person.
I will say
there's a lot of variability, obviously. Go ahead.
No, it makes me think of the Goobacks.
Why? They took our jobs.
No. Well, just because like I find it so funny. All these people that are like, "There's aliens in the world," and I'm like, maybe. And they're like, "No, they're here right now." And I'm like, okay. And then you have other people that are like, "Well, it's humans from the future." I'm like, that I can believe, because like, if we survive into the future, it's going to be because we get past our nationalistic tendencies, and we're all just gonna fuck. We're gonna fuck, and we're gonna fuck, and we're all gonna end up gray.
I don't think that's how it works, but
And
bet
that's how you get the gray aliens.
We would become a very attractive species.
No, it's very true. Dude, white people are some of the ugliest people.
We really are, dude. We really
gotta get rid of all the white people. They're too damn ugly. Rachel was saying that the other day. She's like, for all of our superiority, we're like not very attractive.
I mean, there's good looking white chick.
She's joking, of course, but
right.
Both about the superiority and the lack of attractiveness. You
sprinkle a little in it, like a little Cuban, a little like Puerto Rican.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. You just got to mix everybody up. Like a meatloaf. You get everybody, you mix them all together, you get something beautiful.
Ooh. But there's another tendency. We have this tendency where we want to be like a lasagna, where we're just like kind of like
layers. Yeah, no, that doesn't work. It's got to be meatloaf. It's got to be all mixed
so
together.
We have to go through the meat grinder, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
I was hoping we could avoid the meat grinder.
So much. No. So much grinder. Are you familiar with the app?
I am. I've heard of it. Yeah.
Making sure. Yeah.
It's like for the sub dom stuff, right? Or for like gay sub dom stuff.
Gay sub dom. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Whatever. That's cool. Yeah. No, I don't know. Like I meant meat grinder. I was kind of trying to make a joke.
Yeah.
About,
yeah. The actual
conflict, right? Like
right.
Which isn't particularly funny, but at some point you just kind of have to like,
dude, you got to laugh, not to cry. And
yeah,
you gotta
exactly.
Cry, not to.
Oh, speaking of laughing, like the first parts of episode 7, season 3, Mandalorian.
Okay.
I hope
haven't seen it.
I know you haven't. We already fucking established that.
I know. What I'm saying.
How long are you gonna wait? 72 hours?
I'll watch it once we get done here.
Okay.
Rachel's bringing over one of her friends, so like I probably won't be involved in that conversation.
Perfect. Well, you will find it very funny. Speaking of humor, I just wanted to point that out. I hope you do. I think
you'll love dark. Is it? I love dark humor.
It is not dark humor. It's humor. The darkest part about the humor is a little tough to gray hair.
Okay.
That's a Baby Yoda thing.
Oh, I was hoping it was Brent. No. I was hoping it was Brent Spiner Brent Spiner as Data in Star Wars.
Don't cross streams, bro. Don't cross streams. You don't do that Trek up in our wars.
The Star Trek wars and the Star Wars Trek. Do you watch Futurama?
I've seen episodes. I never really was into it all that much.
There's an episode where the main character Fry talks about Star Trek, and they're like, "Wee, wee, wee, wee." All the alarms go off, and the people are like, "Shut up!" And he's like, "What?" And it turns out that like Star Trek is banned because it almost started like a worldwide cult. and he's like, "Oh, do you mean?" The Star Trek wars? And they're like, no, it was the Star Wars Trek. Yeah. Where all the people that like Star Wars like left the planet. But really, really they were talking about the Star Trek wars where like the world almost killed itself.
Over like people not interpreting it the same way.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, there's some of that in this episode of Mandalorian too.
Well, let's watch some.
But it's not important to the plot.
Some, Canadian
prepper because we're almost out of time. I think we're at an hour now, right?
We are at an hour.
Here are 4 things that will take place after the shizzy hits the fizzy.
No more selfies or cell phones breaking up the flow of life's precious moments, as few and infrequent as they may be. Anyone who survives the...
Wait, why not? cell phones are still going to work. As long as you have a way to charge them. Like, you won't be able to share anything, but you can still take selfies. This guy, man.
Okay, well, let's stop there and talk about that one. No, I agree with it because A, they're not renewable. And so, like, we've already saw how much the cost of electronics got out of reach of a lot of people very quickly. If we go to war with fucking Taiwan or like with China over Taiwan, like, we can basically probably expect to not really have access to any new stuff. And our old stuff will either become outdated or get broken and we won't be able to repair it.
Here's the part I don't like. If you've ever used a phone, for all of you out there that have actually used a phone until it dies, hello, all 2 of you. The phone, you plug it in and the electricity goes through the battery to the phone. And there is, in most phones, no bypass. There's no way to just have the DC power from the USB go directly to the phone. Right. And so if the battery is a part and parcel of the phone and it dies, your phone's dead. I've had phones where you can swap out the battery. And if the battery dies, the phone is dead. Like, it doesn't matter. There is no bypass in almost every phone.
So that might be one way to keep that system going, but it won't exist in the way we expect it now, where it's just there. The other thing is most of the communication towers.
Oh yeah, they're gone.
All of those are going to be they have generator power, or they have like uninterrupted power supplies as emergency power in case of a grid
battery
down,
backups,
but it doesn't last forever. The uninterrupted power supply is like battery backup.
It is. The beauty of it is that they're all camouflaged and they look perfectly like trees. No one will be able to find them. No one will know which trees to blow up. So we'll have it for at least a little while. Let's continue.
Well, and there's a lot of redundancy too, but like, as of right now, if you put a lot of people in a small area, like every time I went to protests in DC, like usually you couldn't get, because the towers there was just too much traffic and it cracked the channels. It needs radio frequencies, and at some point it just becomes saturated, right?
Bryce and Lucas and I all went to Oakland to play Ingress, and as you got more and more people in the area playing this like data intensive game, the fucking networks just shut down. And we had like one guy who was on like, I think he was on Verizon, and everybody else was on like Sprint, AT&T, or T-Mobile, and he was the one guy who like kept going. Because nobody uses Verizon.
And the network gets overloaded, right? And so there are already problems there. So if you just have like a handful of towers in a highly populated area go down, you're out. There's nothing you can do. And so one last thing is also he's like a big fan. He just is convinced that EMPs are going to just like render all electronics useless overnight. Which is possible. A high altitude nuclear blast could potentially, but I don't think we understand the link enough, because people really started understanding EMP after we ceased above ground nuclear testing. Is my understanding.
Right. And so we haven't had any opportunity.
We don't really know what the consequences
things are shielded. Yeah, good point.
Yeah. And so people can make Faraday cages fairly easily, and a lot of people do. And if I get high-end radio equipment that I expect to use in an emergency, I'll probably build a Faraday cage. But as of now, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I mean, like, do you store your phone in a Faraday cage at the end of every night? No, you don't. And so that's why you're going to have bikes instead of cars.
Initial disaster and lives long enough will become an Olympic caliber cyclist once the gasoline runs out, which will probably be in a matter of hours. No more.
So I don't look it, but I used to bicycle everywhere. Then I got a car and I gained 40 pounds immediately.
That's true. I mean, the thing about that, though, like a matter of hours, I think he might be coming from a position of as soon as things go bad, people will drain the pumps
Oh, I was going to say, and if it's an EMP, so many of today's cars are completely electrically driven with electronics and computer chips and everything. And if those don't
gas can't
function,
come out of the fucking tank in the ground without electronics.
I mean, yeah, that, but I mean, car don't run if the computer chips are fried.
Yeah,
and so like most cars would just cease to function, and it would
that
become
that weird dude that insisted on keeping his 1975 Volkswagen Rabbit running like
some dude with a gremlin is just like
exactly.
Continue.
Or hookup culture. Only the one girl in that one village within cycling range for the rest of your life, bro.
I like that he called back to the first or the second joke.
Which was that?
Oh, he said only that one girl, in the one town that's within cycling range.
Oh, right. Within cycling range.
Yeah.
I also like that as he does this mashup short, he used the image from the prostitute in Breaking Bad. The meth head prostitute.
Never seen Breaking Bad.
What?
Never seen Breaking Bad.
Rachel, help your husband.
No, she's busy. She can't. The thing is, if too many people start talking about something, I assume it's drivel.
So I am not the biggest Breaking Bad fan.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to watch it because it's emotionally pretty fucking heavy.
Oh,
you have to watch a lot to have, especially being from a small town where I saw a lot of people fuck up their lives with meth.
Yeah.
It's kind of real to me in a way that made me very uncomfortable in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
Very well written, very well produced.
Okay.
Most of the episodes directed. The acting is fucking phenomenal.
I will eventually watch it. It's just...
And so I don't need to tell you much except that person where she came over to the car is a prostitute.
3 recommendations from people that I respect in order to watch a television show that is highly talked about. Because I assume that if a show is highly talked about and it's just your average person, it's probably pretty bad. But if 3 people that I respect start talking about a show, I will tend to watch it. Okay.
Divorce and separation due to petty and trivial differences in opinion will become a thing of the past. Relationships will necessarily be rekindled in times of crisis because you won't have the luxury of chasing the elusive perfect mate who you'll just tire of in 5 years because we live in a disposable society.
You're
it's sharp criticism.
Yeah,
social criticism. It really is.
That's pretty good.
Do you really think that whole kind of no hookup culture because you don't have apps?
Right.
Bro, they didn't have apps in 18th century.
Oh yeah, and people still fucked around. Yeah,
and they still had their share of fucking.
They straight drew, pornographic selfies and mailed them to one another.
Right.
I was reading something where it's on Reddit, there was a picture posted. It's supposed to be turn of the century, pornography, one of the first pictures, and someone was like, actually, this is from a 2001 thing that somebody did for fun, and they were like, oh yeah, I should have guessed from these features, but at the same time they were like, oh yeah, but that did exist back then. It was restricted primarily to the rich because you had to sit there and have a portrait drawn, but it did exist. So don't think it didn't. Yeah. Oh man.
So I was just gonna say, sadism is named after the Marquis de Sade, who was alive in France from 1740 to 1814. So just for some context on hookup culture, so to speak, and never being able to divorce is ideas of the latter is very interesting because it speaks to a question of, I wouldn't say disposability, but just the ability to start over and not needing being a lot less dependent on a kind of stronger social bond that's not breakable.
I was gonna say, just think about finding friends in middle age. That shit's hard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so yeah, I think so. I also think that like um a lot of that was based on economics, so maybe he's getting at that.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and play your trailer park clip.
Oh,
All I hear is beeping.
it's not a clip. So this is Yahoo News, and it's about a trailer park in Colorado, I believe. No, Washington. And it's a whole bunch of people whose property was going to be sold because the owner basically got tired of it and decided to sell, and they actually managed to get together and purchase it as a cooperative. And what
Right.
I find most, like, this is a rare instance. It's really hard to get a lot of people together to do something like this, especially in a mobile home park, because not everyone's got great credit necessarily.
Right.
And so, and just getting people together, just getting your neighbors to even come hang out and have some fucking hot dogs and hamburgers and chicken wings is hard. And you're just like, hey, we'd like to intertwine our economic, position for the next 20 years. And they all agreed to do it though. And so they went ahead and bought their park for 5.25 million. And what I find most interesting is right here. Since becoming owners in September, everyone's worked to make improvements. And this is something that I've said is I live in an apartment complex. I've lived in apartment complexes or in rented houses all my adult life. And I'm one of the few people that will make small improvements just to improve my own quality of life. But I draw a line somewhere. I'm like, I'm not going to spend more than a couple $100.
On
And
what?
on improvements, like paint or in my own backyard. Yeah, in my own backyard at my current apartment. We have a bunch of pavers in the backyard, so you have a seating area, and it only went like 10 feet, and I extended it out to 20. And like I was willing to do it because I could get pavers relatively cheap. But like here, this fella right here, who's I think only 22 years old, said, hey, everybody thought, you know what? I'm going to make this place the best I can. Some people painted their homes, some people remodeled their interiors and exteriors, and some are working on their roofs. So basically, having ownership, having control over the property, and knowing that you're not going to get kicked out by an owner who decides to sell off to somebody else, encouraged people to settle in, buckle down, make improvements, make it the most beautiful thing that they could. And you would never do that in a rental place.
Right.
No guarantee that you're going to get anything out of it.
And you get zero out of it.
Worse, you actually make it better for someone else who can then get money from it. And so apparently this is on the rise. Rents are rising nationwide. My mother-in-law saw her, I think she said it went from 200 to 600 in a matter of about 10 years, her lot rental.
Wow. Yeah. I don't doubt that at all. Because
What's
it was part of the
worse,
banks snatching that shit up to throw it into funds as a constant, reliable source of income. Go ahead.
Yeah. Or even if the bank doesn't buy it up, the person who owns it says, oh shit, it's 2008. My investment's just tanked. I do own this. I'm going to go ahead and leverage that to buy something else.
Yeah.
So I did just own this mobile home park. Now I'm back to having a mortgage on this mobile home park, and I have to charge again. And so her rates tripled. And
in just a handful of years, a decade.
Well, what's worse is it's a senior senior living, and they're all on very controlled, very tight budgets. And so like if it goes up another few hundred, she might be fucked, so let's see. And so it really does sound like from everything I've read that these people basically were able to pull profits away from like hedge funds and shit and make it so that people who actually lived in this mobile home got everything they wanted. And the thing is, like, mobile homes are kind of like the last place that your average person can own. And mobile homes depreciate in value. They do not appreciate at all.
Yeah.
They're just
They're not a
constantly
store of
dying.
value, but they
No.
are still a better deal than just like
They're a better
renting a
deal,
home
yeah.
or renting. Yeah.
Yeah, but when you die, you're not going to get more than what you paid for it, or
Oh no, fuck no.
your children aren't going to get any more than they paid
Yeah.
for it. Yeah. So I mean, just fascinating stuff. That's the end of where I was. I couldn't get past that.
Yeah. So, are you familiar with the More grants?
No.
So under housing, don't ask me why. I think it was when I was organizing around housing issues.
Mhm.
I subscribed to the news feed for California housing and community development.
Mhm.
So I get emails from the state government about fucking housing grants like once a week, maybe twice a month. Something not super often, but they'll be like, "Oh, eligibility of funding for this program. Grant cycle begins on this date. Applications are due this date," like an email, and then they send all the web links to it and stuff. But anyway, the More program under California Housing Community Development is the Manufactured Housing Opportunity and Revitalization Program.
Ah, okay.
And so, if you go background, the More program helps fund a variety of activities intended to keep mobile home parks a safe and affordable home ownership option. More funds can be used for the acquisition, conversion to resident organization ownership, which is what you were talking about, rehabilitation, which you were also talking about, reconstruction and replacement of mobile home parks, as well as the remediation of health and safety items of both parks and individual motorhomes.
And that does happen, especially when you have older folks
They're not
living
built
there.
well. They
Oh, well,
leak and all sorts of shit.
oh my God. Okay. So my mother-in-law's, hers is basically like, I'll be generous and say a steel frame, but it's got the like plyboard, walls and everything. And so it's definitely super cheap. You can't, screw or nail anything into it. But yeah, not great.
So real quick,
yeah.
the eligibility of this is eligible applicants typically must be a resident organization, right? So if you and other people who live in the mobile home park incorporate interest group or club or whatever, you could potentially be able to get grant funding. Qualified nonprofit housing sponsor. So you as an organization could then work with, like for us, it's called CHIP, Housing Improvement Program.
Yeah.
Or a local public entity. You could go to your county housing authority, which the housing authorities are legislatively established under laws dating back to the Great Depression and the New Deal. And so like every county has a housing authority. And it's not something that local politics, it's like a federal agency, even though it's called like the Butte Housing Authority. It's technically a federal agency. And so it's kind of out of the reach of the local politics if local politics are pretty fucking toxic.
Right. As both of ours are.
Right. But I just thought it was really interesting because, like, here you go. Here is a means of doing that. Most people don't fucking know it. And if they could be like, hey, my mobile home space rent went up from $200 to $600 in like 8 years. And this is a senior, like 55 and up or whatever. We have fixed incomes. We can't afford another $100 rise in our space rent. This would be the way that you just buy it out and stop it from being speculative. That within the mobile home park stuff of this is really a phenomenal way to democratize housing. It's just the land is held in trust rather than being a speculative store of value, or in the case of building apartments or a mobile home park, like a source of rent seeking, right? And so if you hold the land in common, then people still pay for their mobile home, right?
Right.
They still pay for and it pays for the fucking landscaper, and it pays for the common room, the electricity in the common room, and it pays for,
The gym you might have or whatever.
The little gym, or it could pay for someone who literally just does wellness checks.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is,
it could pay for the SPCA to bring dogs.
I
So
remembered
that old
what.
people can hang out with fucking dogs. How cool is
Oh,
that?
that's a good idea. I remember what sparked me, and that was as you get older, your ability to care for yourself declines. And you had said something about how there were fundings for cleaning up after people who had basically I maybe been too embarrassed to admit they needed help, and their home had gone quite literally in some cases to shit.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so like that is a thing that happens as you get older. Is you can't care for your or for your home, you can't vacuum, you can't can't move
Right.
rugs or anything like that.
Yeah, you could just basically keep like a Mary Maids on retainer.
Yeah.
Right. That just rotates. They're like, we can literally scrub the toilet in every mobile home in this like 3-acre park
Exactly.
at least once a month.
Yeah.
And so you just have someone that comes and cleans all the bathrooms once a month. Why the fuck not? The thing is it would be democratic. You get to decide how much you want to pay and what you want to do with that money.
Right.
Because you could be like, fuck that. I don't want to pay. I would rather have more money for myself. Okay, cool. Well, then I'll only pay for the common room. Or I'll only repave the potholes or whatever. Go ahead.
Oh, interesting. Oh, okay.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, your response, those aren't roads. Those are like basically like big circular driveways that access all that shit.
Yeah.
Those aren't publicly managed roads. So like you have to maintain those. That's part
of
I
like what you're saying, like,
yeah.
Hey, if I'm so old I can't use the gym, why am I paying for the gym? I'm going to stop paying for the gym. But you're not allowed to stop paying for the roads because you have services that come through the roads. Yeah, that's a good call. All right.
Or anything else. However, I mean, you got to pay the landscapers too, because old people aren't jumping on fucking riding lawnmowers and cutting the grass.
No, I was just telling you before we started. Well, I was telling you before we started streaming how I went to my mother-in-law's house and had to do some power washing so that we could avoid slips, trips, and falls because there's a whole lot of algae and moss.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I mean, but it would be democratic, right? The people who are paying fees and live there would be part of the association. And I don't want to call it an HOA. I don't know if you caught this week's John Oliver.
I did. Very different, very bad. Yep.
Very different, very bad. At any rate, potentially toxic.
Yeah.
But at any rate, if it was democratic, then instead of just like hiring whatever landscape company and being stuck to grass, you could hire someone who has an innovative idea for being like, oh, we can have a really cool sitting spot and we can put like a little T-bar in the corner so you don't have to sit in your little dark dank hole by yourself because your grandkids barely ever come over to see you. Like you could actually go sit in a little tea garden with other people who live here and make friends and have like a meaningful social life even in your old age.
Yep.
Because we're not living as multi-generational families for the most part, especially like 100% like assimilated Americans, right? Like more recent immigrants tend to like have a lot stronger family bonds, but most of us aren't caring for our fucking elders. Nor do we want to.
No.
Yeah, I don't want to fucking care.
We fucking kick our families out to old folks' homes and.
But this is the better equivalent: is they could just all be old and weird together, and they could decide how they want to spend their rent.
Yep.
Their contribution to the community, resources or whatever.
Yep.
Well, at any rate, I think we're almost at time. You got?
I was gonna say we're at an hour 25. Let's wrap up, sir.
Did you have another article?
No, we're good. That was it.
Okay, fantastic. Well, yeah, no, this has been fun. I really I really wanted to touch a little bit longer on the Canadian prepper on the no hookup culture because, like, I just don't believe it happening. I think that
people are going to hook
might be a little different. Men are going to be very possessive of women. Number one, I could see that.
Yeah.
Under the kind of circumstances, the picture he's painting when he says no hookup culture, part of that's not like having apps or like, not having a bar scene because no one can afford to go out to the bar or whatever. But like, you're still going to fucking have people that hook up. Like, I think the big thing that would prevent that would be losing access to contraception and other family
Mhm.
planning services.
On that note, gents, get yourself cut right now.
Are they going to make it illegal?
No, but if doctors aren't available and everything fails, get cut right now. Otherwise, you're going to have to, be more careful.
I never really understood why they always prioritize like hormonal birth control for women and abortions for women.
It's easier. It's easier for women. There is a hormonal birth control for men, but it's a lot more complicated. And men have to suffer.
Less reliable.
No, it's just as reliable, but men have to suffer the same downsides that women do, and they refuse.
Well, here's the thing. I think that we should also be so like when you go to the clinic in college and you're like, oh, do I have an STD? Or like, oh, hey, can I get some free condoms? Because like I'm a college student, I could just pay for them, but I would rather just come get them for free because I know you have them for free, right? You go there and then like you should be able to go to the clinic wherever and be like, and just be like, yo, I want information on a vasectomy.
Yeah.
Well, like you said
they will try to talk you out of it.
Yeah, you said you tried to get talked out of it, but you had no children. When I went, I had 2 children. And I said, I have 2 kids. I want to get cut. And they didn't.
It's worse for women. It's worse for women if you're under like 35. Well, no. It's got nothing to do with the invasiveness. It's the idea that women's sole purpose is to have children, and so doctors will be like, "You haven't had any children. Are you sure you want to do this?" Like even female doctors will do it.
And I think that's really rooted in prejudice. And I really think that like it is so easy and so safe, and the recovery time is so small.
Yeah,
that we should be encouraging every male of reproductive age to sterilize themselves, because the future isn't pretty and things are going to get a lot worse, because when liberty dies, it dies with a full bladder. No, it dies with thunder's
applause. I got to piss.
All right. See you, everybody. Take it easy, brother.
Good night.